And we are back with another episode of Connect and Protect. I am your host again, the DELO, trying to bring you some added value. Not trying, I am bringing added value, hopefully to your restaurant establishment or any other sort of small or large business that you have. So today, our guest is Eric. He spells his name with a K, not a C. And his company is NextGen, which is it's a merchant processing service company, which is kind of like insurance, kind of like attorneys, sometimes a bad word with people. And so, Eric, welcome to hanging out with DELO here in the office. You own an office actually next door. We've become friends over the years, and you've started doing merchant processing, when you were 22 years old?
Yeah, when I was 22, I started back in Oregon, where I'm from. So to kind of give you a real quick synopsis, I started working with a company. We learned how to sell it really well, but I just told this to somebody earlier today that it ended up not working out for the best because we would get no referrals. There was a lot of complaints coming in, and at the end of the day, I worked there for about a year, and then I realized I needed to make a change, so I went to work for another firm called JP Chase at the time, Merchant Services, but I'm glad I got out of that company at the time I did when I was 22, 23 at the time, because then they got taken over by the Federal Trade Commission. So I made my escape early.
That's not a good thing, right?
It's not a good thing.
Okay.
So I knew there was something going on, but we learned how to sell it really well. Never got a referral, and that just didn't sit right with me. So I wanted to work for JP Chase at the time, the Merchant Services Department. It was night and day. We actually learned how to get referrals. I learned how to get referrals from my boss, and it really helped out. He used to actually deal with restaurants. That was his niche, to go after restaurants. But it was like slow moving, and every merchant account was like buying a house. I mean, the paperwork was this big back in 2002. Things have changed since then, but after that, I learned, I said, I think I can do this better myself. I'll take the best of both worlds, accentuate the positives, eliminate the negatives, and then I started my own company at 24, moved to Phoenix, Arizona in 2003. The business climate was better, not to also mention the actual climate was better.
Yeah.
So for multiple reasons, and have been going strong ever since here.
So explain to people that may or may not know, what is merchant services? What actually do you do?
So it's funny because merchant services is such a general term, but people do relate it with our industry. So what we do is we are the invisible back end piece that allows you to accept a credit card, debit card form of payment at your location.
Okay.
Or online now, etc. We are the back end that processes that transaction.
Yeah.
There's a fee for it. The merchant pays typically, and then they get the money, the next day.
So who are the parties involved? Let's really explain that. Who's the merchant? Who's the processor? There's a bank, right?
So there are quite a few. If I had a screen, it may be easier, but the flow chart really goes from the merchant, the terminal. So I'll use this as an example that I did bring with me. So I am a customer. I spend money at terminal, merchant. And then once my card is inserted into the terminal, per se, then my card issuing bank, it goes through the association, it goes to the processor, it goes to the card issuing bank. Let's say I'm with Chase. Chase says, yep, he's got enough money on that card, it's good to go. It goes back through those parties, it prints a receipt saying approved.
Okay.
Then and that happens in a matter of seconds nowadays. It goes around the bend and back. Then I get the money, the good, the merchant then gets funded by the processor within 1 to 2 business days typically. That's the typical process. And then I'm, as the customer, am responsible for paying my credit card issuing bank back if it's a credit card every month. So there can be Visa, there's the card brands, the Visa, MasterCards of the world. Then you have the issuing banks, so the Chases, the Bank of Americas, etc., that issue the cards. Then you have the processors like I'm representing today.
Yeah.
So there's multiple parties in every transaction.
And they all have a little piece of the pie. They all get a little percentage. So are there hidden fees in this sort of environment?
The term hidden, there could be if the company like mine, so a processing company like mine is the face to the merchant. Like we basically represent in a sense, Visa, let's just say Visa as an example. Visa, the card issuers, we represent the entire interchange side of what the business pays. They look at my face. Let's just say it's me talking to them. I'm now representing them. And so there's a lot that rides on this person's shoulders or this company's shoulders, like I'm representing. The term hidden, if that person like myself, the salesperson, the person who's soliciting the business, doesn't explain all of the fees, then yes, that would be considered a hidden fee. That's why the learning curve in our industry it's a steep learning curve, and it can take some time. And that's why if you're a business owner, you really need to do your homework. And it's hard sometimes because there's so much just convoluted information online now. And what you hear, you get 10 calls a day from a credit card processing company. I'd honestly say probably 8 out of 10 have somebody that isn't fully trained, that unfortunately isn't giving you the full gamut of information that you should need.
And sometimes these owners or these people might make a rash decision because they're busy, they're in a rush, they're like, look, I've heard of this company, I'm going to go ahead and sign this contract, and before they know it, they're locked into a 3-year sort of processing contract, and you see that a lot,
You see that a lot, not only the processing, now a lot of these companies, they started as software companies that got into the merchant services, the credit card processing industry, but they're also locking them in with the credit card processing and the point of sale system that they sold. So now they have a monthly fee on this, and then they have what they think their profit is over 36 months, 3 years for the credit card processing side. If the merchant leaves within a year, then they still have, 2 years left to pay for the terminal.
Yeah.
And 2 years left of profit this processor would have seen that they can charge them. So there could be a very, very steep cancellation fee if they don't do their homework before signing the contract.
Right. Is it beneficial to say that, like in my industry, and I always preach this, in your industry, it benefits to have a relationship with somebody that is close knit to the company and owns the company, as opposed to, no offense, but Joe, the young salesperson that's just out there trying to make a dime?
Yeah, I do think there's something to be said for that. You and I are both still the face of our company, if you will, right? We go out, especially with restaurants, we put ourselves out there to the restaurant owner ourselves.
Right.
Yes, I have salespeople as well, but before, one thing I made sure of, because I saw the competition, which actually has helped us in a sense, because of the training, lack of training in our industry, but we do make sure our sales agents are fully trained, and they're trained by me, by us. So I don't go out and mass hire a bunch of people and say, hey, go hit the streets and get us numbers. That's what a lot of companies do. We take them in one at a time and really put them through the gamut of training, understanding all the fees that can happen, that will happen to that merchant, understanding the hardware. So when we have a salesperson that does go out, they're representing me, and they're hopefully taking what I have told them, and we have told them as a group,
they're an extension
and extending it to the merchant. Because at the end of the day, it's our face that's on the line and our name. And I take that to heart, and I'm very prideful in what we've done, what we've built. We have a very good rating with the Better Business Bureau since 2004. We're still an A+ in Arizona and the Southwest, which is rare in our industry. I say the average industry rating for the Better Business Bureau is about a C-, D+ at that.
No, it's all good. Comes down to relationships and running your business correctly. So some added information or some benefits for people to just understand. Is there a different price point, I should say, with what you guys get paid, banks get paid, if people use credit as opposed to debit and vice versa?
Yes. So there are companies that charge a flat rate. They say, hey, let's just charge you 2.6%.
Yeah.
Maybe 10 cents or whatever, 2.4%. It's easy. Hey, I know what I'm going to pay. We can do the same thing. But we like to give our merchants the benefit of the doubt, because when a debit card is used as compared to a credit card,
right,
even if they're from the same bank, it's coming out of my bank account immediately. There's less risk involved. So if I charge a 2.5% on a debit card, I am making, layman terms, 2.45%. So 245 basis points.
Okay.
That's enormous. That's a ton of profit.
That's a lot of
Average
math.
profit in our industry is about probably a quarter, 25 basis points. So that company that charges 2.5% on a debit card just knocked it out of the park with 200 plus basis points on that transaction. If it's a credit card, they would probably make about 40 basis points on that. So the credit cards have a higher cost. what we do, we pass the savings on to the customer.
Right.
So we would make our 1/4% no matter what transaction comes through.
Okay.
And if that debit card is ran at, let's say, a restaurant, then they're going to get the savings that debit card would provide.
Is it kind of like cost averaging, basically?
Yeah.
Okay. So at the end of the day, nobody understands what you just said because it's so confusing, but that's okay. That's why you got to find somebody that you can entrust and walk you through this stuff. So can people use any merchant processing company that they want? Do they have a choice in the matter?
They can use anybody they want.
Okay.
That's where it gets convoluted. If they're using a point of sale system or a type of terminal, then sometimes the company that sold them that software only allows that company to be used in that software.
Got it.
So without naming names, there are, like, let's say, well, I sell it to Clover, for instance.
Yeah.
Clover is a Fiserv product. So Fiserv, one of the biggest banks, this is their product.
Oh.
So only a company that can sell on that platform can sell this device. If I use other platforms, which we do, we cannot offer this device. So while the merchant still has their choice, there may be some limitations nowadays with the software or hardware they're using, unfortunately.
Okay, so let's talk about that then. I'm Sally the merchant, and I have so-and-so system. I really want to do business with Eric and his company. How easy is it for Sally to switch? And I know that's a loaded question because it really depends on what she has now, what she doesn't have now.
Yeah.
But there's always that possibility.
There's always a possibility. A lot of the time, if the savings make sense with a lot of these software companies, what they charge for the merchant services, it sometimes does make sense.
Okay.
But really, what we'd come in and do is first we'd have to do the qualifications. I have to see what they're doing. We have to sit down. I'm doing one tomorrow, and we're going to sit down and look at over their overall system. Can we integrate? If we can, great. If not, then let's go to plan B and see, hey, what systems could we offer that can do everything you're doing now and possibly add more value. Save time at the table turns.
Time is everything.
I mean, customer doesn't want to sit there and wait for the one server that's working in the restaurant because labor's hard to find nowadays, especially at restaurants for servers.
Yeah.
So they don't want to wait 10 minutes while they're walking around like, I want to go. I'm waiting for my bill, when our system can just put a QR code on the table and they could just scan it with their phone and pay in the app, and then the merchant gets alerted, hey, table 2 just paid, you're free to go. That can save some time. So what I would do to get back to answering that question, I kind of went off on a little tangent, like I'm used to doing sometimes.
All good.
But is yes. So if I would want it to make sense for the merchant with the features that we have with our software, our hardware, the tech that we now have and available at our fingertips, and then I'd want to make sure it makes sense with the savings that we would most likely be able to give them on the merchant services side. So you have these two sides to our industry. You have the credit card processing side, and you have the hardware side, software. Now they're really merged together and married now. So
yeah, it makes sense. As far as a merchant statement, number one, how easy is it for somebody to get a hold of their merchant statement when half the time they probably don't know where it is? Number two, what should they look for? What's like 1 or 2 things they should really look for when they look at it? And then number 3, if you can remember all these points, are you available that if somebody sees this and they just want somebody to give them advice on what is on their statement, are you available to kind of give them a consultation on that?
Yeah, so first, is it easy to find their merchant statement? Sometimes that term doesn't even relate to what a merchant knows because their company doesn't tell them, hey, go online to find your merchant statement, because you have other people wanting to see those merchant statements. That's one thing. 2, they used to mail all those statements, right? They used to always mail them. Look, paper is becoming obsolete. So everything is E. Typically what they'll do, they have an online portal they'll get from their credit card processor. They'll have access to it. They log in, they'll find their merchant statements or reporting, and then they can pull down X number of months for that processor for their last billing months. So it is accessible. It's sometimes hard to find, and sometimes getting a hold of the processor to find where that is, that also is a challenge. Because they may not call you back or answer your phone, or it's phone calls.
They've already made the sale.
They've already made the sale.
Right.
Unfortunately, that's what our competition does a lot. Then 2, what key terms they should look for? Anything that says PCI. It's a red flag, because PCI non-compliance is one term that I'd say 95% of all merchants have a fee of that sort on their merchant statement.
Yeah.
And it's because the processor didn't tell them, or they didn't do the survey. It's something that we're all faced with nowadays. Whether your processor does it for you or not, it's out in the industry and everybody has to do it. Whether it's us, whether it's the merchant, it's basically a questionnaire. They just go online, they make sure they're compliant. And when they do make sure they're compliant, meaning what that means is like I'm not storing credit card information on paper in my drawer,
right?
My file cabinet.
Yeah.
I have an example, a doctor's office that I was at recently. They still had the old file cabinets, and they had patients' folders in there with socials, dates of birth. That is not PCI compliant, my friends.
Not good.
So, especially nowadays. So that's what that means, and the card issuers, they want to make sure that you're not storing information in a non-secure fashion. It's not as easy to hack into that business and steal credit card numbers. And then we go into insurance, right? It kind of all works together. So that is one of the main things. Anything that says non-qualified as well, to touch on that. Okay. And when they do the math, if they take the total number of fees they paid for X month, divided into their total volume, for a restaurant, it should never be higher than 3%, ever. Typically, restaurants should hover around 1.9 to 2.2%. Okay. If I say anything to remember in this entire interview, remember that. Look at your statement, divide your fees into your volume. It should never be above 3%, but it should be between 1.9, and 2.2. That's typically where we see pay at the table.
If you're paying more, you're getting ripped off.
And then 3, I think I remembered all of your questions.
You did.
How easy is it to get a hold of us?
Yeah,
is that right?
Get a hold of you.
So super easy.
Consult.
I mean, I'll give you my cell phone, my personal cell. You call my business. We actually have live human beings that answer our phones here in Arizona.
Very cool.
And in North Phoenix.
Do you service all around the U.S.?
We do. We do. We have highly trained, skilled sales agents that are out there. But even if we don't have an agent in that area of the country, we still, unfortunately, the industry is all virtual. It can be virtual. E-sign apps. Everything is done invisibly behind the scenes with one of these, right? They just do it. So, but we're always available, whether it's in person or over the phone. Yes, we can do e-chats, but I prefer a live human being, and we do have 24-hour customer support and service to facilitate all of the merchants' needs, no matter if you're a bar open, till 2 a.m.
Yeah, because if you get shut down in the middle of the night, that's a
not
problem.
Good. That's not good.
So you need somebody to talk to. Okay, is there anything you want to leave the audience with before we leave?
Well, I'd say, if you guys, you have a merchant processing company, find your merchant statement. It's good to do an analysis every year. Rates typically will increase every April and October, ironically tax time.
Yeah, ironically.
That's when Visa and MasterCard and the powers that be decide to typically adjust interchange. Companies like ours get the opportunity to take the first swing and am I going to increase it even more to make profit and use this as an excuse to make more profit for our side or not? So that's one thing you should look at. Look at your statements at least once a year, or in May or November after April and October have hit, because then your new statement will come out with the new potential rates that are on there. And really, you know what, even if you're not my client, you can always contact me. I'm sure DELO will share my contact information later. You're not my client, I'll give it, if you send over your statement to me, you can talk to me. I'm a consultant. We're not like your average sales agent that, just wants a sale. I want to actually help you. If you're going to stay with, your current merchant services, hey, at least come to me and I'll give you my honest opinion, honest answer on your statement, and, at least to shop your own company to get a better deal for yourself, especially restaurant owners. There's a lot to go into it, and, my respect is all for you guys. I respect what you guys do and what you go through running a restaurant.
Yeah. No, and that's why you're here. You're cut from the same cloth, and it's great to have you as a as a partner, you've taken care of a lot of my, friends, clients, all that sort of stuff, and nothing but great things to say. But, most importantly, it's important for us to get this information out, for me to be able to connect good people with good people, because we all get so busy. We all have to make sometimes rash decisions, and we just don't know where to go or what to do. And that was the whole purpose of this channel. It's for people to be able to go back and say, hey, I remember when DELO talked to that guy that did accounting or merchant, processing or whatever it is. And so I appreciate you coming on today and just kind of explaining the real basics of it, because you did do a presentation for my roundtable, and it was absolutely incredible.
The Arizona Restaurant Association.
For the Arizona Restaurant Association, and it was an hour. So if you guys need any more information on any of this, it'll all be in show notes. You want to reach out to Eric, we'll have all of his contact information. And thanks again for coming on.
I appreciate it.
Awesome,
Thank you.
brother. See you.